Hey y'all, it's Friendly Neighborhood Therapist, and it is February 24th, 2025. So it is day 24 in our series of lesser known facts and lesser known people of the culture for Black History Month. So today I came across this person randomly. I did, I had somebody else planned for today, but then I came across her. Now, this woman is connected to one of the biggest, most tragic events that occurred on American soil. Yet I don't recall hearing her name. When I saw her picture and saw her name, and I was in high school at the time, I remember, like most people, I remember exactly where I was on this day. And I remember so much surrounding this, but I do not remember hearing this woman's name. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so if you haven't already guessed, I am talking about September 11th, 2001, the day America changed. This is the day that the Twin Towers in New York City, the World Trade Center, was attacked in a terrorist attack and hit by airplanes and destroyed, came tumbling down. I literally remember exactly where I was that day, as do most people. I was an 11th grade high school student at the time. But on any note, do y'all know her? Well, this is Mrs. Genelle Guzman Mcmillian, and she was the last person pulled out of the rubble at the World Trade Center. The last person found alive and pulled out. Now, the crazy thing is, she was in that rubble for 27 hours. 27 longer than any other person. And her story was not included in the World Trade Center movie that they released in 2006. So let's talk a little bit about her story with this. Inside the North Tower of the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001, Genelle Guzman Mcmillian felt the building shake. She was working on the 64th floor at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and ran to the window to see what happened. Bits of paper and debris were everywhere in the sky. Then, 17 minutes after the impact of the first plane, 30 floors above her, she felt the building shake again as the second plane hit the South Tower. By then, the elevators had stopped working, and Guzman and her co-workers all decided to evacuate the building on foot. But as they made their way down the stairwell, the North Tower collapsed around them. In a split second, she was separated from the group and crushed under the rubble. Now, let me give y'all some clarity here. She was on the 64th floor. Her and her co-workers made it to the 13th floor. That is a lot of stairs, okay? Hmm, that is a lot of stairs. Can you imagine making it to the 13th floor? Almost to the finish line, basically. And then all of a sudden, everything comes crumbling down around you. You are separated from everyone you are with and in complete and utter darkness, crushed under heavy blocks of cement, basically. Well, that was her. And 27 hours after this, she was the last person to be rescued alive from the World Trade Center. So, a little bit about her life. She was one of 9 siblings born to Venezuelan immigrant parents in Trinidad and Tobago. She graduated from Northeastern College in Trinidad and immigrated to New York City in the 1990s, hoping to find her dream job. Like many, she fell in love with city life and decided to make her move permanent in 2000. Guzman McMillan held a handful of jobs before being hired as an office assistant for the Port Authority. Her office was in that North Tower of the World Trade Center. On September 11th, 2001, the then 30-year-old clocked in at 8:05 like always, and she and her coworkers settled into what they thought would be an average Tuesday. Then at 8:46, she felt what she believed to be an earthquake. Her home island was frequently in the path of earthquakes, and she thought she had little to fear. An announcement over the building PA system told them to stay put, and her manager told her he'd made a call to the Port Authority police to see what was happening. In the meantime, he asked everyone to remain calm and stay in the office. And just for context here, this is a picture of that North Tower after the attacks, the remnants of it after it had already fallen. Now, not everyone heeded the call to stay put. Several rushed to the elevators or stairs. But Janelle and several coworkers didn't want to leave until they knew what was happening. The building had recently had an emergency drill, and because the lights and alarms had not gone off as they had during the training, they did not believe it was an emergency. The group moved to the conference room to see if the news had reported an earthquake and quickly then realized that they were in danger. The news people were saying terrorist attack, Janelle said. The PA came on again, same message, stay put, help will come. She called her boyfriend Roger, who told her to get out of there, but by then the elevators had shut down and they'd just been instructed to remain on the floor. But minutes later, when the building shook once more with the impact of the second plane in the South Tower just 200 feet away, Janelle said her heart dropped. And despite the Port Authority's directions to stay put, the group decided to take the stairs, which is likely what saved her life. The entire way down, she held hands with her friend Rosa, and they counted each floor as they passed. She thought they might be out of danger, but her feet were in pain. When we reached the landing on the 13th floor, I let go of Rosa's hand to yank off my heels. As I did, there was another loud explosion. The force of it knocked us backward. We heard a rumbling noise that grew louder and louder, and suddenly everything went dark. Now, the North Tower had been hit first, but was the second collapse. It was 10:28 a.m., and Janelle was trapped under the rubble of the building. Her right leg had been crushed, her face was burned, and her head was wedged between two concrete pillars, immobilized. She was trapped for over a day, unable to move anything but her left arm, and everything was silent. Eventually, she managed to tear her head free by wrenching her neck as hard as possible. She heard the hair rip out of her scalp and she pulled her head free, and still she felt hopeless. She states, I was thinking I'm going to die. I knew I wasn't going to get out. I'm preparing myself to die. And then she thought of her daughter. She said, I decided to pray. I just knew that I wanted to live because I wanted to see my daughter Kimberly, and she was 12 at the time. I just kept begging and praying, just asking God to show me a miracle. And just as she had given up, believing no one was coming to get her, she heard someone call out to her and grab her hand. She remembers the man saying, My name is Paul, just hang on, they're going to get you out of there. Moments later, a rescue team pulled her from the destroyed remnants of the building and she remained in the hospital for over a month. For a time, doctors believed they would have to amputate her leg, but they were able to save it after 4 surgeries. As her body healed, she began processing the events of the day, believing that her faith helped her through the traumatic ordeal. Within a month of being discharged from the hospital, she decided to get married to her boyfriend Roger, and the two went to City Hall on November 7th and soon started a family and moved to Long Island. Janelle earned her airport and airline management certification and has built her career with the Port Authority. A few years ago, she visited the memorial fountain where her office once was. It was the closest she had been to the site since she was pulled from the debris. She looked carefully for Rosa's name, and she looked for Paul. When news crews came to interview her about the survival story, they brought some of the members of the first responder team that rescued her. But when she asked for him, he was nowhere to be found. A crew member later told her there's definitely no one on our team named Paul. For the 10th anniversary of the attacks, Janelle wrote a book about her experiences called Angel in the Rubble, where she tells the story of Paul, who she now believes was her guardian angel coming to remind her of her faith. Now, doctors at the time also told Janelle that she would likely never walk again, but she did. She walks just fine with a very slight limp that is barely noticeable to others. She also added two additions to her family. Her daughters are now 20, 21, and her oldest daughter from a previous relationship is 36. She lives in Valley Stream, Long Island, and enjoys staying home and spending time with her children. Janelle stated in a previous interview that while her nightmares about 9/11 have long ceased, there is one lingering psychological effect: regrets of her losing her best friend and coworkers. She has survivor's remorse. Why did my coworkers die and I survived? Y'all, did y'all know who she was? I have not heard her name. Do not recall hearing her name. And again, why wasn't she in that movie that came out in 2006? And another interesting point, there was a dog involved. Search and rescue dog is the main reason she was found. The search and rescue dog found her. They realized that someone was alive and under that rubble, and the dog helped them figure out where she was. Interestingly enough, there was a documentary all about that on Animal Planet. So, Animal Planet had a documentary in which they talked about her, yet, this black woman who was saved after 27 hours, no word of her in the major documentaries and films that came out. Mm-mm-mm. Well, clearly she has a purpose bigger than life itself because she is still here. And you would think after all that, Some people wouldn't be able to go on. Some people would be severely traumatized forever. But her faith has pulled her through, and she is still around to tell her story. Miss Genelle Guzman Mcmillian, the last person pulled out alive on September 11, 2001 from the North Tower collapse of the World Trade Center. Y'all have a beautiful, wonderful rest of your day, and I will see y'all tomorrow for day 25 in our series of lesser known facts and lesser known people of the culture for Black History Month.